I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for our evaluators today. It is Carmelo Bellardo, and his speech is my 9/11 icebreaker. Carmelo Bellardo.
Yesterday was a pretty special day for my wife, Josie, and our family and I. 10 years ago yesterday, we closed on our home here in Florida. We lived in New York City at the time, in Queens, about 8 miles from what is now known as Ground Zero. The day before, we were in New York. And we were hustling and bustling to get to Florida for the closing the next day. As I dropped Josie and the kids off at the terminal at JFK, I went to park the car. And we had our dog with us at the time. He was a little poodle named Bunky. Feisty little guy. And I had this bag that I used to carry him when we used to take flights. There was only one rule with Bunky when it came to traveling. Don't let him see the bag. Because if you saw the bag, you were not getting your hands around him to pick him up. So as I parked the car, go around to the trunk to get the bag, open the trunk, and as I'm lifting the bag, who do I see through that little opening between the trunk and the bottom of the dashboard in the car? Bunky. He saw that bag, and he was not getting out of the car. I couldn't get him out of the car. So here I am, going to miss my flight. We're going to miss the closing. I said, Bunky, you're staying. I opened the windows, left the keys under the mat, and I left. Went to the airport, to the terminal. On the way there, I called my niece, said, you got to go to the airport, find my car, and get the dog. Well, Bunky was okay. We made the flight. We closed on the house. And the following day was September 11th. Beautiful day here in Florida as it was in New York. And I was on my way to Walmart to buy garbage bags, the stuff that you use to clean up the house that you just bought. On my way there, I hear Bryant Gumbel on FM radio. Now that may not sound strange now, but Bryant Gumbel was the host of the CBS morning television show. And I thought, what's he doing on the radio? And he said something about an airplane crashing into the World Trade Center. Now, folks, I grew up in New York City. That's happened a few times before. So it was really no big deal. Until he said the words, 737. I quickly made a U-turn and made a beeline back to the house. And as I walk into the house, television was right there. And that's when that second plane hit that second building. And I was in shock. My wife, my 2 young daughters, my niece and her kids were there. And my initial urge was to go back home, get back to New York. As I looked at my wife and my 2 daughters, I realized that wasn't going to happen. I was exactly where I needed to be. Now, I'm not unique in my story about 9/11. Everybody in this room has a story about 9/11, where they were, what they felt. And as I watched the subsequent moments, and as the buildings collapsed, one by one, my wife was really feeling for all the people that we thought just got killed. At that time, we were talking about 20, 30,000 people possibly dead. This is really going to sound strange, and I felt strange at the time, but I didn't really think about the people. I thought about the buildings. See, the World Trade Center was a place for me to go when I was a kid. I used to take the subway down there, sit on a bench, and just stare at those magnificent buildings. I would lay on the bench and just stare up and just watch those buildings. It was almost as if they swayed in the sky. And now they were gone. I sat in front of that TV for 3 days, and I watched everything that went on. I was driving back to New York one day. I bought a car for my mother, and one of the things that I used to really love was driving on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. Right around the spot, downtown Brooklyn. There was an area where you were driving, there was a bunch of buildings, and at the end of the last building, bam! There was the Manhattan skyline, the Twin Towers, and all the buildings in Manhattan. And at nighttime, it was a sight to see. And my goal that night was to see that sight, that skyline, without the Twin Towers. So I made it to New York in 15 hours, which was pretty good. Got on the BQE, it took me 2 hours to get from the Verrazano Bridge to downtown Brooklyn. But it was well worth it to me, because when I looked and saw that skyline without the Twin Towers, it just hit me again. Now today is a day that everybody is remembering what happened on September 11, 2001. I think about it just about every day. I think everybody should think about it just about every day. Sometimes we get complacent, we forget. But don't ever forget what happened downtown Manhattan, at the Pentagon, and in Shanksville. Don't ever forget. Mr. Contis.